Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. This is Marco from Meduse Audio in Montreal. I figured I would do a little video today because I'm a bit bored, like most of you. But I thought I would share a tip. I give you a free way to test equipment, especially on the used market. That's something I do when I buy used gear. But today, instead of doing it with my regular tools, I will show you a way or a software you can use to do that for free. I really believe that it is something that is well worth taking 5 minutes when you go over someone's place to pick up a used piece of equipment. Like, let's say you're buying a secondhand preamp, EQs, compressors, like all this analog stuff. Especially if you buy a stereo unit, you want to make sure that both channels are matched. Sometimes you'll use one channel at a time. It's great. It all looks like it's perfect and in good condition, and then you throw that on a stereo bus, and then you realize, oh shit, like the thing sounds really different from one channel to the other. So, to prevent those kind of surprises, I figured I would share with you a nice little way to do a nice test. Cheap, easy, simple. All you need is one laptop and a couple cables and just a two-channel interface with your computer. So, as I said, I think it might not be for everyone, but I think that a lot of people can benefit from this. So let's go ahead and see how I do that. So, but first thing you want to do is head over to roomiqwizard.com to download the software. Okay, so once you're on the RoomIQ Wizard, you'll find the downloads just down here. First thing, once you get on their page. So whether you're running Mac or Windows, go ahead and get the latest version, uh, and then we'll show you once we get in the software how it's done. All right, so once we've got the software installed, the first thing we want to do is set the preferences for your sound interface. So this step is stuff that you would do home prior to make sure that you don't take 15 minutes once you get to buy something. Uh, First thing, open preferences. Depending on what kind of interface you have, you'd most likely use channel 1 and 2 to perform those tests. In my case, I'm going to use 7 and 8 because I'm using other IOs for different purposes at the moment. But basically, you'll make sure your drivers are set to ASIO. Find your device. You want to set the output and inputs on the first channel will basically be the measurement channel. So you would set that to channel 1. And then the timing reference output and the loopback input would be your channel 2, which is going to be our reference to perform the transfer function between the two channels. Um, Something I like to do personally is using the main speaker test signal, which is unfiltered noise, because by default, I think the program is going to be on the subwoofer test signal, which is a low pass noise. So go ahead, set that to mains. And before we go any further, we want to go to the analysis tab just to make sure under the impulse response calculation that the use loopback as timing reference is set. So that's going to allow us to measure the loopback input that we've just set. That's going to become our timing reference, and that will then give us a good reference for the phase response, and we actually have that channel enabled to perform the measurements between the two channels. So once this is done, we're going to go ahead and check our levels. If you have a two-channel sound interface, any sound interface, just make sure you don't have an internal mixer that would route input 1 and 2 straight to your outputs, because you'll just generate a big digital feedback loop, and that might be fairly unpleasant, especially if you're wearing headphones. So once this is all done, all clear, we're going to hit check levels. That's going to explain to you a bunch of different things for when you're doing room measurements with microphones and stuff like that, but that's not our case today. So once you know you're not hooked up to any speakers, anything that can blow up, just go ahead, press next. And now we see that the output is the noise we're generating. Input is our first input. The reference input is our loop back input. So we see that we have signal going everywhere. So in order to make sure this is what we get, basically, what I've done is just use the two outputs and plug them in straight back into the two inputs. So that's the basis, and we see that it's working in my case. So we're good. So we can click finish. And another thing we want to do before we do any measurements is we're gonna hit calibrate, just to this is gonna allow us, since we know that our gains are the same on the two inputs and that our reference input is working. Since they're gonna have the same thing, we know that our line, when we compare things, is gonna be at 0 dB, unless we have a weird gain structure. But I think it's worth doing that for the minute. So once you've hit calibrate, same thing, hit next. It's gonna run a sweep measure, I believe, of like a half a second. It sends the 1K tone, blah blah blah. We see that our input and reference input are at the same level, so I know I'm good. If for any reason you had different preamp gain settings on your card, you would see right away that your stuff is way off. So once this is done, sound card can now be measured. So it's gonna measure the sound card basically. Do that. Runs its sweep. Wait for it to be done. Gives us nice result here, and there you go. You have your first measurement, and this is your sound card itself. So we can see that we're at a 0 dB difference, pretty much from 20K to all the way up to from 20 hertz all the way up to 20K. If you don't see this as is, just go ahead and press the 20 to 20K button down here at the bottom. There you go. So you don't really have to look at stuff, like, unless you wanted to see like really high up harmonic distortions and stuff like this. But even like at 48K, that wouldn't really give us any much details or interesting stuff. So once this is done, the first thing I'm going to show you is how to measure a one-channel interface, a one-channel device. So basically, we're going to run a new measurement. It says it's not calibrated for SPL measurement, but in our case, we don't need that. So we continue anyway. You want to make sure that you're set to at least 20 hertz to 20K. The length of the FFT here can be quite short. So let's set it to 120K, 28K. Because we're not measuring like a decay time in a room and stuff like this. Like if you would be to do like an impulse response in an arena and wanted to have like the whole reverb tail and everything, you'd go with a much longer FFT to be able to capture that. But in our case, we're just going in and out of a device, so we don't really care about this. So output, that's going to be your channel 1. Your timing reference output will be your channel 2. Input 1, input number 1 is going to be the device we're measuring, and then the loop back input is going to be our channel 2 as well. So what you want to do here is take the output number 1 of your sound card, send it to the device you want to measure, and then the output of the device is going to come back into the channel 1 of the interface. Your channel 2 is going to stay linked just as an internal reference. So let me go ahead and do this before we go any further. Okay, so my stuff is hooked up. So now all we've got to do is start measuring. So going through an analog device like this, sometimes the gain will be a bit different. The gain match itself might be a bit different as the internal loop into your interface. So that might show us either a gain boost or a gain reduction. But what we really want to look at the moment is the actual frequency response of the unit. So let's go ahead and do our measurement. And there we go. So as I could see right there, we've got more gain on the analog device than the sound card itself. But that's okay. Let's zoom in a little bit on the vertical, just so we have a good representation. Because some, if you don't have a vertical scale that is precise enough, everything's gonna look real flat, real nice and flat. So let's boost that a bit. Like this is by half a dB increment, so it's a it looks a bit weird, but we're basically flat. Like we're within a dB all across the pretty much all across the whole range except for top end. And note that right now I'm doing this through a unit that has just been serviced. Uh, all the components has not been burnt in yet, and I'm still not quite done calibrating the whole thing. So that's just for reference. But basically, we can see that it's pretty damn good, like flat all the way across within 1 dB. Like as I said, if I put that like this, like you'll be like, wow, this is amazing. But then we're in 5 dBs increments on the grid, so it doesn't really make sense. And phase response, linear all the way across. There's no weird phase wraps anywhere, so we know we're pretty good. So something we can do after that. So if you only had the one channel device, what you could do then is like change some parameters, see that all the EQs are working and stuff like this, and compare some measurements. But at least you know that seems healthy, pretty nice. You know, I would be happy to buy this for sure. Um, the next step, I think, which is the to me one of the most important, is if you have a two channel devices. What you want to do is make sure that the left and right are matched. And what we're gonna do here, since we already measured channel one, I would suggest to use channel one as your reference, mentioning channel one on the unit itself. So what we're gonna do basically is use channel one in the second input, because that's going to be our reference. And the first output is going to go to channel 2 and then back to channel 1. So whatever changes or differences we see on the graph, we know it's channel 2 compared to channel 1, and we're not comparing channel 1 to channel 2 because we're not quite sure what to expect from channel 2 yet. I mean, it'd be easy to see if there's a difference. It would just be reversed. So I'll go ahead, hook it up, and we'll try that to compare the two channels on the device. Okay, so this is hooked up. As I mentioned, I swapped my channel 1 and 2 physically from the hardware to send my channel 1 as my reference. So now we're going to do a new measurement. Everything's already set, so all we have to do is start measuring. We see right there that the gain is a lot closer than what it looked like with the against the sound interface itself. So I would tend to say that channel 2 might be a little brighter, but we're still exactly kind of the same kind of curve within 1 dB. Phase response is great. So there's less than a dB of difference between the two channels. So I think that's pretty damn good. Now I'm going to do another example because I know there's quite a bit of a difference between the two channels on this unit. That's why I'm using it right now to do the demonstration. When I bypass the thing because the calibration is not finished. So let me go ahead, put that in bypass, and then we'll see what happens. And then we'll have probably a result that would tell you, hey, don't buy this. So let's see what happens. All right, so I'm going to proceed by doing a new measurement. Same setup, same thing. Still comparing channel 2 to channel 1. Let's do that. Whoa, okay, so now we can see that the sweep did its thing, and then we saw the gain changing as the sweep was going. So right now I can see that at 10K it's like it's pretty much like almost like 2.5 dB of gain difference, which to me is concerning. So once, if you get a unit like this, especially the unit I'm doing the demonstration with today, which is worth quite a bit of money, you wouldn't want to spend like 2 grand, 3 grand, or even like $500 on something that you're gonna that like both channels are usable individually, but then if you stick that, let's say like on a drum bus and stuff like this, you'll notice right away that something's wrong, and then you'll feel it. Even like when I first noticed stuff going on with this device, I wasn't even on headphones, like just monitoring and stuff like that, and then I just sent it for service, and now I'm still working on the thing, but I thought I would just demonstrate um, how we could do that simply. I mean, obviously there are better ways to do this. I personally I use Smart by Rational Acoustic because it's all real time, and I can see that like you can move the parameters on your unit and see all the thing changing in real time. But I think for a free tool, I mean, this is amazing as far as even like looking at a room response when you want to do room treatments and calibrating your systems in your studios and stuff like this. Like that's a great tool. But yeah, I thought I would share this. I mean, literally, you can hook this thing up and test the device you're about to buy like within 5 minutes, and at least you know what you're getting. If you or even test stuff that's already in your studio and see how this behaves, and you'll learn how to interpret the curves and get used with the interface. And I really think it's worth the time. So hopefully you enjoyed this little video. I know I'm not the best at communicating and teaching people, but hopefully that helped you guys today. If you have any other questions or other topics you would like me to discuss, I'd be happy to do some more. And obviously, I'm still working on my video editing skills and stuff like this. So if you have any comments, any ideas, give me a shout. I'd like to collaborate with people and stay busy, especially during those rough times. Doing it from my basement today because it's harder to get in the studio and stuff. But hopefully you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. If you like what you've seen today, give me a thumbs up. Share that with your friends, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.